Hi, folks. It's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. Welcome. Hope you can join me. It's a chilly, blustery day. It's going to be chillier tomorrow. And I hope that you are well and able to enjoy some birds. I'm going to see if I can get my technology working on the phone here. So we'll see what I can find here. All right, there we go. So as usual, if you can see me and hear me, let me know. I always appreciate that. And I can see my comments on the phone. So, hi, Jean. Thanks for joining. Again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon, and welcome. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about birds or nature or other natural history topics. And if you have any observations you'd like to share, that's great. It's always interesting to hear what other people are seeing. So thanks for joining me. Just checking my phone. So let me know if I'm coming through loud and clear. That's great. Well, this weekend, in 2 days on Saturday, I've got a big day coming up because I'll be in the Superbowl of Birding. I've been talking about it for a few weeks now, and I've done a bunch of scouting. I'm going to be seeing how many different species of birds I can find in the town of Seabrook, New Hampshire. There's a group of us that are usually part of a team called Twitchers in the Rye, but because of COVID, we're splitting up, so the Twitchers have gone viral. And on Saturday, there'll be several different Twitcher teams out seeing how many birds they can find in a single town. Be in Rye, be another team in Hampton, and I'll be in Seabrook. And we start at 5 o'clock in the morning and go until 5 p.m. It's all part of the Superbowl of Birding, and it's a fundraiser for New Hampshire Bird Records. So, and for New Hampshire eBird, which are both programs of New Hampshire Audubon. So I'll be out looking for as many species as I can find, and the rare species are worth more points than the common species. So I'll be looking for those. And if it's a 5-point species, which is the rarest, we have to call it in so that other people can find out about it and look for it as well. Not everybody is sticking to just one town. Some people do a whole county, the Rockingham County, or some people do both Rockingham County and Essex County, Mass, although that's not possible this year because of COVID. So stay tuned to see how we do. I think it's going to be chilly. It's going to be cold. I'll be leaving home at 4 a.m. in the morning. So I'll be up pretty early and get my foot warmers going and my hand warmers and as many layers as I possibly can. It's been fun being out scouting, looking for birds. It's a great distraction for a time of year when can be kind of quiet bird-wise and get kind of holed up inside and cold. So I've been out and about, so that's been fun. I see a couple of comments and questions, so let me get to those right away. Candy, hi. Saw a red-tailed hawk on a garage peak. Yes, red-tailed hawks are one of the more common hawks in the winter time. We probably see red-tailed hawks and Cooper's hawks the most in winter. Sometimes we've got sharp-shinned hawks around. Every once in a while, a merlin, although usually they're gone for the winter. And every once in a while, a peregrine falcon, particularly around areas where they nest. Because come February, they'll be starting to check out their nest sites. But red-tailed hawks are big hawks. They're one of the hawks that are most common on roadside edges. So the other day when I was driving to Seabrook to do my scouting for the Superbowl of Birding, I was driving along 101 and there were red-tailed hawks all along there. And they sit in trees and they have this big whitish breast. Usually they have streaks that form kind of a band across their chest, called a belly band. And the adults have red tails, but the younger birds, it takes them more than a year to get a red tail, so they may have browner tails, but it's a short tail. They're big chested birds with short tails, and they feed mostly on rodents, not so much on birds. They might opportunistically take a bird, but they don't usually feed on birds. So that's why you see them on the sides of roads a lot, because they're looking for rodents like mice or voles that are feeding in the grasses, the short grass on the side of the road. And if we have a lot of snow, sometimes the southern facing banks of the roads melt first, and the red tails can find prey there. So sometimes the younger red tails can haven't learned any fear of people, and they can be sometimes kind of tame. Tame is probably too strong a word, but less concerned about people near them. I know that was true this summer. If you got a chance to see the red-tailed hawk video that I made of one catching vole and eating it, it was right near me, and he was not at all worried about me. And Joe, I see you've got a question about gray squirrel. Why is there so much chasing? They circle up a tree after each other. Yes. Well, for gray squirrels, I think if you sort of watch how many you have around year round, you'll see that there are fewer in the spring and summertime, and there are more in the winter time. So I think what happens is that they gather in higher numbers around feeders where there's a good source of seed on the ground that they can feed on. So you'll have birds, you'll have squirrels in closer proximity than they normally would from a territorial standpoint. They're going to have a territory they want to be in, and normally they may not be tolerant of other squirrels being close to them during the nesting and breeding season. But the other thing that's probably going on, and I'd have to research this, is a dominance factor. So there are probably some gray squirrels that are more dominant than others, and they're going to be the ones that go for the prime feeding locations, the prime feed, and they're going to chase the less dominant squirrels away from the prime areas. So I think that's what you're seeing is probably a combination of dominance and territoriality in the gray squirrels. I know I have a lot of gray squirrels at my feeders right now, but I don't have as much in the summer. Of course, I'm not feeding the birds in the summer, so I don't have a ready source of food for them to gather in my yard. Excuse me. So, and you'll also notice when you look up in the trees, there are these balls of sort of sticks and leaves all together. And that's a gray squirrel nest, or a dray, as they call it. And they can look like bird nests, but if you notice, you'll see that they have lots of leaves in them. And if they've got lots of leaves, then you know it's a squirrel nest, not a hawk nest, because a hawk or a crow nest will be all sticks. They wouldn't, I mean, they might have an occasional leaf here and there, but they wouldn't have lots of leaves mixed in with the sticks. So you can see quite a few of them in the trees right now, especially without the leaves on the deciduous trees. And then, of course, there's the perennial battle for many of us of trying to feed the squirrels without feeding the birds. And that can be a challenge. But one of the things I mentioned last week was a pole with a predator guard on it, and then it extends up above the predator guard, and I could hang a platform style feeder from that. Somebody wanted to see that, so I brought mine inside. Forgot to go look for one in our nature store at Audubon, so I brought mine inside. So let me show it to you. All right, so here's the platform. Let's see if I can get this right. So it's got a hook here that I hang from another hook that comes out of the top of my pole. And then it's got these um, wires down to the platform itself. And the platform, it's, I don't know, I can't show you, well, maybe you can see the screening a little bit on the bottom there, but there's the seed in it. And because it's got screening, if it gets wet, the water goes right through. But I have one of those clear plastic domes over it to try and keep both the snow and the rain off of the seed that's in the platform. You do need to empty the seed periodically. I've got mixed seed and sunflower seed in my platform here. And this is a type of feeder that something like a cardinal can come and land on. And they don't like the tube style feeders, but they'll land on something like this platform feeder. And that's true for some of the other larger birds too, like mourning doves and blue jays that have a hard time at the tube style feeders with the little perches. So, all right, let me check my phone here for comments and say some welcomes. Hi to folks who are joining me. Laura, Florence, Audrey, Carrie, Gerald, thanks. Jean has got a question about great horned owls. Hearing one every evening for over a month. Well, Jean, are you in Seabrook? Can I come listen? I need great horned owl at 5 a.m. on Saturday. Um, but he's been quiet lately. Oh, then forget it. Do you think he has left the area or is he nesting? Well, this is the time of year when great horned owls do start nesting. Some of them start actually in January, some in February. So they're really early nesters. They also have a large territory too. So it may be moving around its territory calling. So you might hear it for a while and then it moves to a different area and calls from that area. It may come back to your area. Or it may be actively calling for a mate. Now, I don't think we have any way to really sort of confirm this, but it seems that some birds call more frequently when they don't have a mate. And so maybe this great horned owl called a lot looking for a mate. Maybe now it has one and it attracted a mate and it may not be calling as often. But usually great horns call pretty steadily into the springtime. So I don't think the onset of nesting would necessarily stop his calling or her calling, although it might make them call a little less frequently. So both the males and the female great horns call. They do a hoot. They're the whoo, 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 whoo. The male is deeper than the female, and they will call back and forth sometimes, and you can hear both of them. But could be, I mean, it likely is nesting in the area somewhere where you are. But again, that could be a large territorial area. Um, when I do my checking for owls, it'll be between sort of 5 and probably 6:45 in the morning on Saturday. Excuse me. And great horned owls sometimes call just as it's getting light. And that can be a great time to listen for them. Some of the other owls that I'll be listening for, like saw-whets and screech owls, are less likely to call as it's getting light. Even barred owls tend to like to call when it is dark, although sometimes they'll call in the middle of the daytime. But we'll see. It'll be testing my imitation skills, which I have not, can't say I've had great luck with over the years. And Joe, they had two great horns calling back and forth last week late at night. Haven't heard them this week. So again, they could be moving around or could be tapering off, doing a little less calling as nesting starts, and they've got their pair bond established so that calling can be used to strengthen a pair's bond. They may not stay together the entire year. You know, they may move independently in the year in their larger territory. But when it comes to nesting time, they need to reinforce their pair bond, come together in the territory, find a nest site, mate, and lay eggs. So that may generate more calling as they get involved in that process. So hi, Amy, Lauren, Jim. And Lauren says she's heard many herself here in Salem. Ah, I wish that was Seabrook, not Salem. I've got some good target areas for great horned owls in Seabrook. Great horned owls tend to like to be in some of the same areas as red-tailed hawks, whereas barred owls tend to be in more of a swampy habitat or near swampy habitat, similar to the kind of habitat that red-shouldered hawks like. Although I'll be looking for red-shouldered hawks, they're usually out of the state at this time of year, and they're a much less common hawk. Red-tails are quite common, and hopefully I will find one on Saturday without too much trouble. But red-shouldered will be a little trickier. There'll be a little bit a lot more unusual in the wintertime. Although that being said, I did find two in my scouting in Seabrook, right by one of the malls of all places on Route 1. So it'll be interesting to see what I can find. All right, again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. If you have any questions or observations, please feel free to post a comment. And if you're watching a recording, you can always message us on Facebook, or you can send an email to birdsetc, BIRDSETC, at nhaudubon.org. Or you can go to our website and there's a place to contact us and send us a message with a question. So thanks for joining me today. It's got quite a fun week coming up. Wanted to make note of a couple of plants that we've featured lately. One you'll see is the American holly with its dark green leaves. It keeps those leaves year round. And the other is the winterberry, also called winterberry holly, which is a native holly that drops its leaves. Both of them have red berries that birds like. And this is the time of year when birds start feeding on them. I'm sure you've seen the winterberry. It's often in swampy areas, and you see all these bright red berries on these thin stems. They're shrubs, not trees. And birds like bluebirds will start eating them now, eating those berries. And if there are any hermit thrushes lingering, that's something they may feed on. Now, hermit thrushes are usually gone at this time of year. They're down south, southern US, but occasionally one winters over. So you can watch for them feeding on fruit, particularly in swampy areas. The swampy areas may not only have a little bit of open water with some insects around the edges, but that's also where the winterberry grows. The holly that keeps its leaves has berries, and the bluebirds and robins like that. But that's a plant that is primarily native farther to our south, but some varieties have been developed that are a little more cold tolerant, so they can be great plants for landscaping in your yard. They're beautiful to have. They have the dark green foliage, the red berries. They're great to have at Christmas time. And then also birds will feed on them. Lauren mentioned cedar waxwings, and yes, they will go particularly for the winterberry and sometimes even for the holly. But I've seen robins and bluebirds at the holly bushes more. That holly is probably not going to do very well north of sort of mid-state lakes region. They can get some winter kill when the winters are particularly severe, but usually the main roots will survive in our area and they'll they'll regrow the green. But you want to, if you want to get a holly for your yard, be sure to get one that's tolerant for the temperatures in our area. And the Winterberry holly will survive throughout the state. It does like moister soils, but it doesn't have to have moister soils. But with both of them, you need male and female plants in order to have berries, as I have found to my dismay, because I have a winterberry in my yard, which blossoms, and turns out males can have flowers as well. It's very strange, but I get no berries because I don't have both male and female plants. So I've been working on that. I got some more winterberry plants from the state nursery. That can be a great place to get some native plants that are good for wildlife. And I've planted them. They're still pretty small. They come bare roots, so you have to put them in the ground, give them attention before they really start going. But hopefully, once they do, I've got several, and I'll end up with both males and females. So you can think about those as your landscaping plans, sort of as you work on your landscaping plans. This is a great time to do that. You know, we can't plant now, but it's a great time to think about it. Think about what plants we want to get, put in the spring, what seeds we want. For those of us who are gardeners, we're already thinking about that. So keep an eye out for those couple of plants. They might be something that you'd like to have in your yard. Hi to everybody who's joined. Carrie, June, Mariette, thanks for joining me. Great to have you. So as I mentioned, if you want to see pictures of those two plants, the two hollies, the winterberry or the American holly, they're both posted on Facebook. The American holly recently and the winterberry last week. So just scroll back through the post and you'll see that. You'll also see a post about the twitchers there with a picture of a black-throated blue warbler. And those are very rare in wintertime. They should be down in Central or South America where they can find insects all year round. So what this one is doing up north, who knows? It's surviving on, I'm sure, some suet that's being put out by people feeding it. But black-throated blue warbler is a 5-point bird for the twitchers. Unfortunately, it's not in Seabrook, it's in Rye. So my fellow team members will be looking for that 5-point bird to get the 3-point bonus if they're the first ones to call it in. So you'll see that post also in Facebook there. One of the things that I wanted to show you before we run out of time is woodpeckers with red heads, because we have a few reports of a red-headed woodpecker, which is different from, well, that's not different. It is one of the woodpeckers that has a red head. So, so I thought I'd just show you some pictures. I'm hoping I can do this in my book here, of our woodpeckers that have red on their heads, so you can start becoming a little familiar with them. So most of us are familiar with the downy and the hairy woodpeckers. Those are the black and white woodpeckers that look very, very similar, but they have a little tiny bit of red on the back of their head. So let's see, I'll see if I can get one of these up to, there we go. That's the hairy woodpecker with the longer bill. But you see the red on just the very back of the head. And then it also shows you when they're youngsters, they can have red in the front of their head. And both males and females can have that red in the front. And then with the females, it disappears, and with the males, disappears off the top of the head and comes in on the back of the head. So those are two of our most common ones. Now, another bird that has a striking red head, but is quite large, is our pileated woodpecker. That's the largest woodpecker that we've got. And let me make sure I get the right picture here. There we go. So you can see it's quite large. It's all dark. And it's got red on the top of their head, a little crest, long bill, And the males have a little bit of red here. Whoops, can you see that? Here by the bill. And the females do not have that. So that bird has red on its head. And then the other bird that is often confusing is the red-bellied woodpecker. And the most prominent feature on the red-bellied woodpecker is a red head. So it's very confusing. There you go. Can you see that? All right. So you see it's got red over the top and all down the back of the head. And it's named for just a little bit of a red wash that it has on its belly. But when you see it at your feeder, you might be tempted to say, oh, that's a red-headed woodpecker. It's got red on its head. Well, so it does, but it is not the woodpecker that's officially named the red-headed woodpecker. So notice that on the back of this bird, it's got black and white horizontal stripes across its back. And that's your giveaway that it's a red-bellied woodpecker. So let me show you what the red-headed woodpecker looks like. And red-headed woodpeckers are not common in the state. They're relatively rare. We did have a pair actually nesting in the state last year at Bear Brook State Park. And we've got reports of a couple of them in the state in Keene and Henniker right now. So you can see them, but they are quite rare. And if you do see them, be sure to take a picture because so many people confuse them with other woodpeckers that we have that have red on their head that I just showed you. But here's the red-headed woodpecker. So you can see it's got a totally red head. It's entirely red, front, back, top, sides. The whole thing is red when it's an adult. And it's got black on the back and then white on the wings. The immatures are not at all striking. They have brown on their heads, and they can actually be kind of a puzzling bird to try and figure out what they are. You can see it. Where's my finger? There we go, right there. That's the immature with the brown head. But you can still see the black on the back and the striking white patches on the wings. And when they fly, there we go, you can see that pattern. The adult has the red head and then the black and then the white. So there's your tutorial on woodpeckers with red on their heads. So you can keep an eye out for those different kinds of woodpeckers, learn to tell the common ones, and then when you see something rare, you'll recognize it. Now, I didn't mention the flicker or the sapsucker because usually they're not around in wintertime. I will say that I found a couple while I was scouting in Seabrook for the Super Bowl on Saturday, so you can see them, and they do sometimes come to feeders. Let's see if I can. I didn't mark them in the book, but maybe I can show them to you. They're most similar to the red-bellied woodpeckers. But here we go. They don't have that swath of red on the back of their head. There's the flicker. And you can see in this illustration, its old name used to be yellow-shafted flicker, and you can see why, because it's got yellow under its wings. And if you ever see one of its feathers, it's got a yellow shaft. If I find one, I'll show it to you. But there they are. They have that horizontal striping on the back, but instead of black and white, it's black and brown. And they don't have the red running all the way down the back of their head. So, but they're uncommon in the wintertime. If you see one, snap a picture of it. But they're very fun birds to see. They have that black V on their breast and spots, and they're quite striking. So, all right, there we go. Let's see, I'm just checking to see if there are any other questions that I missed. Did I miss a question? If I did, post it again. Every once in a while when I sign out, I discover that there are comments that I missed that didn't come through. So I apologize if that has happened to you. All right. So anybody have any other thoughts or comments? Sightings they'd like to share, questions they'd like to ask? This is the time to do it. I'll be back next week about the same time at 4 o'clock. And we'll have some other interesting things to talk about. And of course, I'll have to tell you how I did in the Super Bowl of Birding. So stay warm, everybody. Again, it's Becky with New Hampshire Audubon. We really depend on support from folks like you to keep providing programs and to keep looking after the birds in our state and the wildlife in New Hampshire. So I hope you'll make a contribution, and you can do that easily on our website or just send in a check. It's great. Thank you, Joe. Oh, good to hear you like the new time slot. Thank you. I think we'll probably go with that for a little while. So, all right. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week. See you next week.